point of the matter is that I think what they did well here that a lot of video game adaptations to screen fail to do is be able to introduce this world to people that are not necessarily familiar with it in a very easy way. Wanted to talk to you about Fallout.
Cool, I've played a Fallout game or two.
I have played, like, every Fallout game,
Yeah,
I think, at this point.
That's fair.
And
I think I've played 3 New Vegas and then Fallout 4. So,
Okay.
Or 1 or 2.
those are the big ones. Those are the
Yeah.
big ones. I tried playing the first 2, but boy, on modern systems, it is very tricky to do so. I think you might need mods just to make sense of the interface, if nothing else.
Probably.
And I did, twice, try to play Fallout 76.
You know,
Anyway.
that recently had a free trial period,
Mm-hmm.
and I almost thought about doing it because I do like MMOs, but I didn't pull that trigger.
You saw me play it, and you thought, yeah.
Yeah.
We're actually not talking so much about the games today. Because I wanted to talk to you about the TV series that they did.
Oh yeah,
recently
they
over
did
at
do
Amazon.
a TV series, didn't we?
We did, indeed. Amazon, of all folks, put out Fallout, the TV series. I'm not going to lie to you, when I first saw the announcement, having been hurt before, I was kind of skeptical, honestly, of what they were going to do.
So show me on the Amazon where it hurt you.
Yes, exactly. Show me on the adaptation where it hurt me. And I was a little skeptical of what it was going to be because I figured that Fallout was going to be very difficult to adapt to television, because there's a lot of lore and there's a lot of intricacy in it.
I feel like the people who are going to be watching a Fallout show are people who are fans of Fallout.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that I always end up watching with people that have no frame of reference for the games.
Fair.
So I'm always kind of curious as to who is going to understand what's going on, and if they're going to be able to make it make sense for people who are absorbing a new kind of genre, like a new kind of version of it. Because, I don't know if you're aware, video game to, like, TV or movie adaptations have had kind of a checkered history in the past.
Yeah.
And
it's almost the same history that anime to television, like real person television, has had.
Yeah, to the live action, or how comic books getting adapted to the screen was tricky when it first happened back in the 80s and 90s. And the reason is very simple, is that when you create any kind of piece of art, it is created for the medium that it is in. So you create a video game, it is meant to be an interactive medium, and if you were to move it to anything else, it's not going to be that. You know, you don't paint music, and, you know, you don't write songs in book form. You know, they're different kinds of medium for art forms. And so I wasn't coming in with huge high hopes for it, but I knew I was going to watch it because it's Fallout, so obviously I'm going to. I'm going to say it right now, the Fallout TV series is better than it has any right to be. It was really surprising that they did as good a job as they did. And I think the reason why is that they focus in on essentially 4 main characters, and those 4 characters really introduce you to the overall experience and the factions of the Fallout universe. First of all is the Ghoul, and the Ghoul is great because first of all, it's Walton Goggins, so you've got to enjoy that. You've played Fallout 4. You have to think of the Ghoul story as sort of similar to your Vault 111 survivor in Fallout 4, because his story takes place before the bombs fall, and then when you first meet him is actually at the point in that past where the bombs fall. So immediately you're taken to what it was like before Fallout, and then eventually what it's like as him as a ghoul 200 years down into the future. And so He's sort of your introductory character, because a lot of people that are not familiar with the games would be looking at that saying, oh, this is what life was like before, and then in the first, 4 minutes of the show, you see all the bombs start to fall down.
Yeah, it's essentially the opening to Fallout 4.
Yes, exactly. It is the opening to Fallout 4, and people trying to get to the Fallout shelters and everything like that. So immediately, people kind of get an idea, oh, this is what the main idea of Fallout is going to be. They kind of allude on the television.
Bombs fell, everyone died.
Exactly. They allude on the television. It's at, this birthday party, and they allude on the television about, Anchorage and all of this and what's happening, and that we're on the verge of something terrible, and the fuel wars are going on. So you get that, and then it kind of skips forward to the present day of the show, and you're introduced to Lucy. Lucy is a vault dweller, and you start to see that there's a lot of parallels between her and what happened in Fallout 3, which is that you're in the vault, you grow up in the vault, and then something happens with your dad, and you have to go off and find your dad.
Great, so they're really just taking the openings for each of these games as their characters.
Many of these characters follow plot lines to many of the lead characters of the games.
So it doesn't sound
Or
like
similar.
they had to do a lot of creative heavy lifting on the characters' parts.
Well, except that in every single one of these cases, I feel like it is modified from the original. Like, for instance,
Sure.
for the ghoul, you don't get cryogenically frozen and then wake up 200 years in the future. You're just the ghoul. The ghoul, it lives out in the wastelands for that 200 years in the irradiated waste. Lucy, her father doesn't just disappear one day. Raiders come and take him. And the overall reason why eventually gets more fleshed out. I won't get into spoiler territory, really, past the first episode.
Spoiler, bombs fell.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Fallout, the bombs fall. But I won't get into really many spoilers, except for the basic stuff that you're probably familiar with Fallout. But Lucy's whole quest line is what you normally experience if you're playing a Vault Dweller leaving. Which is basically, you're the Vault Dwellers, you have this can-do attitude about, the future is you. You're the ones that are going to...
she must have had a good vault.
You think so. They're under the impression that they're under, a seed vault. They're under the vaults that were supposed to work correctly. Well, actually, I'll tell you one thing that was interesting that was set up in the first one, where I was going, this vault that she's in, 33, is part of a tri-vault setup. So that Vault 33, 32, and 31 are all connected to each other, and they can move personnel between them. And so this is kind of like the setup. And immediately I was like, I have not seen that before. And immediately at that point I was like, oh, something's happening here. Something is going on here.
Illuminati
this is not...
confirmed.
Yes, there is something going on here. But Lucy has to basically go out into the waste. So you're seeing from her perspective what happens with Vault Dwellers going out into the wasteland and discovering that, yeah, this place is hell and it's not fun, and all of your training in the vault is not going to prepare you the second you meet a radroach. Her brother, Norman, stays in the vault, but starts to wonder what's going on with the vault. And so his storyline is the uncovering of what Vault Tech actually is and does. So when you're following him, you're starting to realize that all is not peachy and rosy in these vaults like they made it out to be. Which is also a very important thing to understand about Fallout. And then you meet Maximus, and Maximus is part of the Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah, I could tell by his name.
Right.
That or he was part of the Legion.
Yeah, I know. It could have been either way. They did not introduce Legion in this. So that's probably for the better. Leave that till later. But Brotherhood and, New California Republic come into this. And he gets picked up by the Brotherhood after, his town is decimated. He's trying to make his mark in the Brotherhood. And then when rubber hits the road, kind of realizes that, it's much more complicated what the Brotherhood is doing, and, like, what it means to be part of the Brotherhood, and if he even wants to be in there in the first place. So, basically, by kind of giving these few different perspectives, I think it goes over the major themes of the show, or of the Fallout universe. The Ghoul is especially interesting, though, because you also follow him in the before times, when he was like a cowboy actor in Hollywood.
Oh, great.
And uncovering, like, what's going on, because he apparently was more familiar with, like, Vault Tech and all the other companies that were around at the time before the war.
As actors should be.
It was like during the Red Scare, and so everyone's kind of paranoid, and he starts to uncover, whether he really wants to or not, that there's something going on, and maybe he shouldn't trust these people. And then you get to see the fallout, obviously, of it in the end, because he's very aware of what is going on in the here and now, far more than Lucy or Maximus would know. So it's good because you get a lot of characters that are good introductions for people that are not familiar with the series, where they can kind of relate to them, and go on their discovery of what is going on. You go with basically all four of these characters, you're going on a journey with them to uncover these specific storylines about the Wasteland and about Fallout and the lore of it. And that they try to keep it fairly simple without getting into too much heady detail. In general, they start with the basic framework. Lucy's trying to find her dad. The Vault's in disarray after an attack. The Ghoul's trying to track down a bounty. So is the Brotherhood. So they're all sort of on very basic quest lines, and these intersect with each other. And they start to learn more about all the different factions. Of course, for people that are like me, who are familiar with the Fallout series, all these lovely parts where you just kind of go, ooh, it's that Leonardo DiCaprio thing from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you're snapping at the screen like, hey, I know that thing. It's like, I did that on far more than one occasion.
I know what that is.
Yes, it's like, hey, I understand that. I understand that reference, as Captain America would say. They mention areas and places and stuff about the war and stuff about the companies, and right up to the end. And I won't spoil the very last scene of the season, but it got me very excited for a season 2. Which I'll just say that right now.
Nuka-Cola.
They actually had Nuka-Cola, like, throughout the thing. There's Nuka-Cola boxes. Oh, I should have mentioned that dog meat shows up real early. You meet dog meat.
Okay.
So, dog meat.
Specifically dog meat.
Oh, yeah, they call him that in the thing.
Great. They couldn't have come up with a new character?
Dog meat's a classic.
Sure, but, like, he's specific to Fallout 4 and the lone, the Vault Dweller.
No. I think dog meat showed up in the original ones, too, that were out in California. Yeah, they just called them that, too. And also in 3. Also in 3, dog meat was in 3. It was in 3, it was in 4, and I think it was in the originals. Point of the matter is that I think what they did well here, that a lot of video game adaptations to screen fail to do, is be able to introduce this world to people that are not necessarily familiar with it in a very easy way, where it's understandable. Like, the motivations for the characters are very understandable if you're not familiar with Fallout at all. And if you're trying to figure out what's happening, it's almost like a little mystery for folks that are not familiar with it. Like, what is going on with the Vaults? If you have no frame of reference of who Vault Tech is, or what any of these companies are, or what the Vaults are, you'd be under the impression at the very beginning that, oh, these Vaults seem like a nice way to repopulate the Earth and, avoid the fallout. Until things start to go wrong very early. And you go, I wonder what that's about. Until the very end, where, like, Norman really uncovers, like, oh, this is what's happening here. And like Lucy, when she goes to another vault later, goes, oh, this is kind of messed up. And still kind of thinks to herself, well, this can't be like my vault. And the vault dwellers in like Vault 4 are kind of like going, oh yeah, sure. Sure. Like they already know that there's problems. But being able to just introduce the Brotherhood and eventually introduce like the NCR, because that's always a good conflict to set up at the beginning. What they are and what they're trying to achieve is a good introduction without getting too into everybody else that you'd want to get down the line. So enough stuff that you can recognize it as a fan, easily accessible for people who are not familiar with it, and they do a good job of actually writing the characters so that they go on their own story arcs. You know, they actually...
Well, that's important.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like Lucy goes from the beginning of the series to the end of the series being the Vault Dweller can-do attitude, I'm gonna go trek out into the wasteland and I'm gonna achieve everything, to the point at the end where she seems like a very disillusioned character who might just be willing to shoot anybody. Takes a lot of damage. You know, sometimes they'll talk about protagonists that don't take much damage. She takes damage, like, immediately in this,
Great.
and keeps going, you know. Interesting characters that do have, like, changes in their personality, have arcs. They're, like, this is kind of important in the modern era to explain to people that, like, the character arcs and the acts and everything are there. And make sense. They have mini arcs and everything. And does a really good job of representing the show while also expanding a little bit of the lore to make it more comprehensible. Like, there was stuff that they talked about in this that I thought were interesting ideas about, like, why the war happens or why the bombs fall, and who was aware of it and who might not have been, that I think add to the storyline more than detract from it. I had watched the Halo series, and when I watched the Halo series, I think my biggest problem was, like, it does a bad job of really getting to the part of the Halo itself.
Yeah.
Why
is it named Halo?
Why is it named Halo? Yeah, if you were just watching this, like, why is it named Halo? Slight spoiler. You don't even get to Halo until, like, the last 2 episodes of Season 2. Like,
that's a bit of a long intro.
It's a long introduction, and in the meantime, they're, like, talking about the colonies themselves, and like, the interpersonal, like, political stuff that's going on behind the scenes. The Flood doesn't get introduced till, like, the tail end of Season 2. I understand that you want a slow burn, but at the same time, these are kind of important things you kind of want to set up early to get people interested in the main meat of it. They don't spend any time mincing around, really, when it comes to Fallout. They explain very early on that there's the wasteland, there's the vaults. Your vault dweller gets out into the wasteland and starts running into problems in episode 1. Your ghoul is, you see before and after the war in episode 1. You understand what Maximus wants in episode... like, they get rubber hits the road, and then they just expand upon that in every single episode, which is a very good job. Overall, I think if you were looking at a good way to do video game adaptation, I haven't seen The Last of Us, but I have heard that that's very good. I think that there's a perfectly fine way to do it. Interactive to non-interactive medium is a hard one. If the interactive thing was kind of part and parcel, so you have to adapt it, not one for one. But I think they did a good job of making it a Fallout TV show, rather than try to just shoehorn in the game to a different medium. Like, they really built the story to be in its new format, in its new genre.
That's good, then.
Yeah. I don't necessarily want the properties to try to follow the games exactly. You know,
that would be a little boring for those of us who have played the games.
Yeah, because you've played the games, so you know what happens in the game. Like, you know what happens in the game. But at the same time, I also don't want it to be so esoteric that I don't even know... It doesn't even feel like the show is part of the world. And I think that's what Halo kind of ran into, which is that, like, for most of the time, except when Master Chief is on screen, I didn't necessarily even recognize it as like Halo, as like what the whole theme of it is. But no, the Fallout television show does a really good job of explaining those themes, doing an original story with original characters, but also representing very well all of the factions that are in it, and how they interact with each other, and explaining to people who are not familiar what the lore and the history of it is, through the eyes of the characters that you're following. I think that they also do a good job of making them, what do I want to say? They're not likable, but they're not squeaky clean heroes. They're a little morally gray, and sometimes they do things where you have to wonder, why did you do that on first glance? Because they're living in a wasteland and they have to make some difficult choices. So you have to kind of like suss out why they do certain things.
Yeah.
It makes sense if you're familiar with the world, but if you're not, you kind of they have to justify it. They usually do a good job of justifying it. I'd say Fallout, as the television series, did a really good job. Really looking forward to season 2. I guess it's already been greenlit because it got so much good press. Looking forward to seeing, really looking forward, because I kind of, after seeing the very last scene that they showed, it's like, I kind of think I know what they're gonna work on for a
now you gotta find out in season 2.
Now I gotta find out in season 2. I kind of have an idea of where they're going with at least one branch of the storyline. But yeah, I guess I would ask folks out there, if you saw the Fallout television series, what did you think of it? And if you saw, like, Last of Us or Halo or any of the other television adaptations of video games, like, what did you think of them, and what do you think works and doesn't work? Because Halo wasn't a total disaster, but boy, I felt like I could constantly see a better show that they could have made out of it, because of the way it was framed. Let us know what kind of adaptations for video games you like to see, and if you hold out any hope for other properties that might go down this route, what you'd like to see in those. Leave a note in the comments down below.
Yes, notes. Music notes preferred.
Music notes, yeah. Just do a musical composition. We love those.